I'm going to tell you the story of this bag. And then I'm going to tell you what's missing from the story. Because what's missing from the story of this bag is missing from our current social entrepreneurship movement. And if we can reclaim those missing pieces, well, then we can reclaim the potential of this movement, which is to shift our broken systems and achieve our collective social and environmental goals. So here's how the story is often told. This bag is made from reclaimed fire hose. Every year, firefighters decommission tons of fire hose, and it ends up in our landfills. This company's co-founder, Cressy, figured out how to sell enough bags, belts, and wallets to reclaim the entire supply from London's fire brigade each year. Plus, they donate 50% of their profits back to the firefighters' charity. Pretty cool, huh? That's how we teach about social entrepreneurship. We say there's a system in our society that's broken, and it's creating a problem or creating waste. And so the social entrepreneur comes in, takes that waste, makes a business, makes lots of money, saves lots of waste, makes lots of donations. But that doesn't fix the broken system. What's missing from the story is that social entrepreneurship's potential and Cressy's goal is to fix that system. So she does a lot more than simply run a social business. We're going to look at the difference between being a social business founder and a system change leader. And then we're going to look at our education system, because as an educator myself who's had a chance to teach about these things all over the world, I can tell you that right now our social entrepreneurship education system is largely designed to make social business founders. So then we'll look at what we can do to start to make some system change leaders. Because when this movement started over 25 years ago, social entrepreneurship was about system change. We celebrated social entrepreneurs like Wendy Kopp. Wendy is the founder of Teach for America. They take some of our highest performing students and put them in some of our lowest performing schools. And in addition to reallocating talent, they're helping to generate a generation of young people who know about and care about educational inequality so they can further change the system in their future careers. Wendy never started a business, but she is a social entrepreneur because she's taking entrepreneurial approaches to take limited resources, create more value by shifting a broken system. Somehow, along the way, over the last 25 years, as the term social entrepreneurship spread wide, the definition and the practice has narrowed, and along the way, we lost system change. We now teach it as if it was simply about starting a social business and growing it bigger. We tell small circle business that it needs to become big circle business, and in order to do that, it needs to gain market share by outcompeting its competitors and being unique in the field. It's about winning. And that might be how the idealized version of a business grows. It's not what impact growth looks like. System change looks more like this. It's messy and complicated, and it takes more than businesses. It takes nonprofits and governments and everything in between, because no one organization can grow to the size of the problems we face. And we're certainly not going to get there by selling a lot more stuff. Sometimes it means deliberately trying not to be unique in your field by giving information away or training others or getting the government to take over your work. In Cressy's case, she does run a social business because she recognizes that there's a problem of waste right now and she wants to reclaim it and show other people that it can be done. And then she uses those funds and that credibility to do the rest of her system change work, like work with the Scottish government to help them affect change with their aggressive climate change goals, or work with corporations all over the world to help them design products that produce no waste and can continue to be reused. Or she works with us at Oxford and other universities to teach future leaders about environmental entrepreneurship. She is trying to change a system. Yet people who subscribe to the small circle, big circle version of entrepreneurship would say she shouldn't do those things. It's a waste of time and money unless it sells more bags. Somehow, social entrepreneurship has been commandeered by the business sector, and many people now define it as simply starting a business with a social goal. But that's completely missing the point of all these people who can weave and through these different sectors. Because real system change social entrepreneurs, they're agnostic about the tools they use to create change. Yeah, they might start a social business if that's what's needed, but if that doesn't work, or if it's not what's needed, they'll do something else. They will work with governments to create new policy, write a book, work with corporates, work with nonprofits, be activists. Heck, they might even hug a tree from time to time. But these are not your grandmother's tree huggers. These are people who are solving our most entrenched problems. People like Majin. Majin was an investigative journalist who was so angered by the environmental problems he saw in China that he found a way to take the government's pollution data and share it with corporations abroad so that those corporations could see if the factories they were hiring were causing environmental violations. And if they were, then they could put pressure on those factories to improve their environmental outcomes. And it's working. He didn't start a business either because he didn't think that's what's needed, but he continues to change the system by writing about it, by putting pressure on the government to release more data. You see, a system change leader looks at a system and sees what's missing. And then they look internally and say, what can I do to affect change? But then they galvanize other people and those skills to fill other gaps so that the system can shift. And the beauty of that is that you and I and all of us can do that from whatever area we come from. It means that you don't just need to have the skills of being a social business founder to do this work. It means we don't just need people to invent and sell new and better solar panels. We need them to reinvent the systems that left people without sustainable electricity to begin with, and all the roles in between. But fortunately for us, we have an entire generation of young people who want high-impact careers. I've worked at the University of Oxford for the last 5 years, and over 60% of our MBA students say they're getting an MBA because they want to have a high-impact career, which means it's not the type A MBA of the past who's elbowing each other out of the way to get first in line in the hedge fund interview. Now, they might still be a lot of type A's, but some of the biggest competitions on our campus and campuses all over the world now are the social impact ones. And while our students' demands have shifted, our universities have been slower to do so. And that needs to change. Universities need to change their metrics of success. Because if our students are demanding high-impact careers, then we better start measuring for that, rather than competing for some archaic business school ranking system that still ranks schools by asking our alumni the size of their signing bonus and nothing about the size of their impact. We also need to change this siloed thinking. These courses are for accountants, these are for marketing professionals, and people who want to change the world, well, take these entrepreneurship courses and a few social impact metric courses on top. System change needs to be this generation's core work. It's far too important to leave up to a few social business founders. Every accounting course should include accounting for externalities. Every marketing course can introduce social marketing. Every entrepreneurship course can teach our students to measure more than money. But if we want our students to break out of a broken system, well, then we need to teach them that there's a system to break. And right now, we're talking about it as if there's a problem in the world. They just need to start a social business and grow it really big, and they can solve the problem, which completely ignores all the other efforts out there that they can learn from and build upon. And they see that all the accolades have to do with social business founding. So they're applying to universities saying, I want to be a social entrepreneur. I just need to figure out my issue and my business model. What they don't realize is that real system change leaders don't wake up every morning saying, man, I am so excited to be a social business founder. No, they wake up and they are so angry about something in the world that they really care about and want to change, or something they're so excited about creating for our society that that's what drives them. They are married to solving a problem, not married to their solution. But right now, we are marrying our students to their solutions. Almost every entrepreneurship course and accelerator program ends in some sort of pitch day where the students need to pitch their world-changing solution, and it further embeds their confirmation bias. We're spending more time teaching them how to perfect their sales pitch than we are teaching them how to understand the problems they claim to be trying to solve. And the judges of those contests often know more about business and business scale than they do about impact and social change. And I can tell you from having joined and judged enough of these contests that if the judges focus on scale over reality, an app probably wins. Perhaps an app for Nigerian farmers, but it's pitched by students who have never farmed and never been to Nigeria. That might sound funny, and I don't hold the students to account for they have goodwill, but they are doing exactly what we're asking them to do. They're trying to solve problems they never lived, for people they have never met, in places they have never been. And I don't know about you, but I can't get fired up to my core about something I don't understand. So they win a bit of money, they fly to Nigeria, they meet some farmers, they set up a focus group. Eventually they realize their business wasn't grounded in reality. They come home, they write a blog, they get credit for their course, and they go work for a consulting firm. We need to marry students to solving problems. We also need to think about, what about those people in the focus group whose expectations were set up? And what about the people who have lived the problem, who we overlooked because we're using our limited funds to hire elite students around the world to try out their business ideas? We have to ask ourselves some really tough questions. Those are some of the questions I asked when I did research and wrote a report last year called Tackling Heropreneurship, where I looked at how we can move from the heropreneur to the system change leader. And because I was in a position to be designing social entrepreneurship courses, I got to try out some of the ideas. And here's what we found. Most social entrepreneurship courses right now give students one tool: start a social business. They don't teach students how to understand and apprentice with problems they haven't lived, and they're asking them to solve before they ask them to understand. And they're not teaching students about systems, about how other efforts can be built upon, learned from, and contributed to. If we can shift those things, well, then we can shift our broken social entrepreneurship education system and create more system change leaders. At Oxford, we did a few things. First, we started a leadership program where we cross-pollinated our MBAs with the master's and PhD students, and we didn't teach them about how to start a social business. We gave them leadership skills so they could use those skills however they wanted to attack problems in the future. There are so many accelerator programs right now that ask students to apply with their world-changing business idea, and then they spend all this time to try and start this business, even though we know businesses in general are more likely to fail than scale. What if we had the same number of system change leader accelerator programs where a student applied with an issue they cared about and what they knew and what they didn't know yet, and they could spend the time to learn more about the issue, figure out how they might contribute, and figure out how to get others to create change. That's the potential of our social entrepreneurship education. We also need to rethink these business plan competitions. At Oxford, we made 3 changes. First, we opened it up to alumni. And in essence, what we were saying to our current students is, you don't need to start a social business the day you graduate. If you don't know about homelessness and it's an issue you care about, don't start a homelessness social enterprise tomorrow. Go work for one or volunteer there on the side. Learn, ask questions, and eventually you will find a U-shaped hole in the world where you can use your unique skills to contribute to change. And if at that time it happens to be that you're going to start a venture, come back to us then. Secondly, we said, if you have not lived the problem that you are trying to solve and can't prove that you have apprenticed with it, you can't apply for startup funding. But you can apply for our new funding called Apprenticing with a Problem funding. Because what we realized is that at almost every university, there's only one pot of funding for those who want to improve the world. So students are knowingly pitching half-baked ideas just so they can get the foot in the door. With Apprenticing with the Problem funding, they can go out, do research, get a job, get an internship, and start on their path. Third, we created a new competition. Internally, we call it an unbusiness plan competition. And we're running it at 24 universities. Students no longer need to pitch their solution to the world's problems. It's based on the open source Impact Gaps canvas. And students now pitch their understanding of the problem. What's happening? What are the numbers? What's going on? Why is it still entrenched? And then they explain their understanding of the current solutions. What's already being tried? What models are out there? What's working? What's not? And then they look at the gaps. And it might sound obvious that someone who wants to solve a problem might look at what's already being tried, but that might be common sense. It's not common practice. And as educators, we need to give our students tools like this and incentivize them to learn before they try to solve. We also need to stop asking competition questions, questions like, who are your competitors? How are you better? How are you unique? And start asking collaboration questions, like, how is what you're proposing going to fit into the system that's already there? How are you learning from others who have already tried to solve this? And how are you contributing to their impact, not just your own? Then we can start to fund some people who are married to solving a problem. People like Laura. Laura won some of our Apprenticing with a Problem funding last year. She's from Hawaii, and she really cares about the issue of preserving indigenous cultures while improving their economic opportunities. And she realized that there was a number of organizations in New Zealand that had done just that. So she used her funds to go to New Zealand for a few months and work with some Maori organizations. And she's now taking that knowledge back to Hawaii to share it across the social sector there. That is the potential that we have as social impact educators, to find people who are married to solving a problem. And Laura said she never would have applied for funding if it was about starting a social business, because she doesn't want to start a business. She wants to solve a problem and change a system. Which brings us back to this bag and to Cressy. There were two things missing with her story in the beginning. First, Cressy didn't just fall into this work. She has cared about our waste system since she was a young girl, and she would go to the garbage dump with her father and see beautiful and useful things that we had all thrown away. And she wanted to change that. So she spent her education and her early career learning about that waste system. And secondly, she's not just a social business founder. She's a system change leader. She's doing everything in her power to change the system so that other young girls don't need to see that waste to begin with. But she can't do it alone. We need a heck of a lot more Cressys. We are so close. There is so much momentum and interest in this social entrepreneurship movement, and we're nearly there in how we educate and fund it. But we're missing a few things. And if we can bring those things back, well, then we can do a lot more than sell some sexy bags made out of waste. We can fix our wasteful systems and help those young people who want high-impact careers to be the system change leaders that we need them to be. Thank you.